Strike Zone Australia with Chris Coleman, the official podcast of the Australian Baseball League.
Well, welcome to Strike Zone Australia, and this time I'm sitting around at the Bent Brewery in Canberra with two of the new owners of the Canberra Cavalry, Donn McMichael and Dan Amodio, names that will be known well and truly to baseball fans in the nation's capital, and I suspect to many people who follow the game closely from further afield. But gentlemen, congratulations on becoming the first two known owners of the Canberra Cavalry.
Thanks very much, Chris. It's an exciting time.
It is indeed, and I should probably disclose straight up at the start of this podcast that I've been invited to be a shareholder in the Canberra Cavalry, and I'm going to be buying in for a minor stakeholding, but despite what some people think, that will not change my way of thinking or my way of reporting on the game or indeed on the club, because that's when I'll just pop the journalist's hat on. So we'll get that out of the way straight up front. But let's start with this one. Where did the idea of a community-owned model for the Canberra Cavalry come from?
Chris, I think it's an obvious extension of the Let's Do It campaign that actually got the Cavalry to Canberra 9 years ago. As we know, the licence at that stage was either going to the Gold Coast or to Geelong. The baseball community in Canberra got together and under the leadership of Theo Vasilakis and put together a bid that was almost... they couldn't refuse it. And I think it's testament to the commitment of the baseball community here in Canberra as to how strong and passionate they are about the Cavalry.
Now, you've been on, and I'm working from memory here, to be 5 years now, roughly, as CEO? 4 years?
Yeah, 4 years. This is coming into my fifth year.
Okay, and Dan, you've been based in Canberra for a couple of years now.
Yes, I moved down to Canberra, it would have been last September, so call it a year and a half ago. And coming up on my 5th anniversary here in Australia in June.
With the ABL.
With the ABL overall, and just in this country.
Oh, no. And that's something I do need to ask you about, because you've been with the ABL head office, and then moving and working much more closely with the Cavalry as GM of the club. So what happens with that relationship now with you and the ABL, now that you're a co-owner of a club? Yeah,
well, it started with... I started coming down here most regularly when we were working on the redevelopment process. So the government had committed the money, and then it was just a matter of getting it through the system, both their side and our side. So still remains to be seen. I know part of this project is to really separate the responsibilities into the local areas from Baseball Australia, from the national body. But we'll see how it goes. There's still a handful of facilities projects out there at the national level that are really important and really good. There's probably the biggest one is out in Lismore at the moment, where the government up there has committed a bunch of money. So we'll see if they need me. I'm still available, but the primary focus is going to be here in Canberra.
So you'll effectively be, I guess, much like I am, a contractor as projects arise for Baseball Australia or the ABL? Yeah,
again, wherever they need me. They've got a great team over there, and there's a couple of new guys. Michael Crooks, particularly, is on board now, who's going to be running with the facility stuff directly. So wherever they need some help, I'm here for them.
Donn McMichael, the model, a community-owned model. Tell us a bit about how it'll work. And then we might talk a little bit about the ownership structure, but how will this community ownership model work for both the Cavalry and for the game of baseball in Canberra?
I think it's important to start by saying that Dan and I see ourselves as co-owners, but also as partial custodians of the game in Canberra. So we're looking to grow the game both locally and nationally, and certainly assist with the ABL's development here in Australia, through New Zealand and into Asia. So it's very important that whilst we are the owners, we're very much looking to grow the game. As far as the structure is concerned, Dan and I are the majority shareholders in the company, and we're looking for investors to come in, particularly the baseball community. We've got a percentage that we've set aside for the baseball community, like yourself, because we want to share the joy, the excitement, the passion that we have, that they have, that they've brought to the game. So it's very much a community-based bid. It was always, I think that was one of the strengths that perhaps got us through.
Is it fair to say that you've had discussions with people around Canberra who could potentially be investors, and just about all of them have jumped straight in and said yes? Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. We've had
ticket.
Yeah, we've had overwhelming support from, and in some instances from very unexpected sources. So that's exciting. I think it sort of displays the trust that the baseball community and to a lesser extent to the corporate community here in Canberra have in what we've done together. But let me say very clearly, what we've done is an extension of what was there preceding us. So all we've done is to take it and grow it that extra step. But certainly there's been a lot of interest, Chris.
And in monetary terms, and I appreciate you don't necessarily want to get figures out there, but you're not talking about mega bucks here and setting up a huge war chest so you can go and buy in major league players. It's more about getting a fund together now so that the club can operate into the future.
Yeah, that's right. And the Cavalry is already a financially stable organization. So from our standpoint, putting this project together, it really is all about growth. We still need some help in the office to help grow the brand and to get out there and talk to the community and get people to come out and try in the games. And so there's plenty of work to do. We're not at that ideal standpoint yet of how we want the business to be run, but we're starting at a really good base. So yeah, from our standpoint, it's really just a matter of getting enough money in the chest to make sure we can fund those growth plans and ensure the Cavalry is going to be around forever.
As I said at the start, for many people in the Canberra baseball community and for several people outside Canberra around Australia, you're a known quantity. So I don't necessarily need to ask, how did you get into baseball? How did you get involved with the Cavalry? So we can sort of bypass that part of the conversation here. Anyone wants to track that down, just go and check it out on old episodes or send me a note and I'll do a follow-up. But there are a couple of things that Adam Dobb, the new owner of the Blue Sox, raised when I spoke with him following his announcement as the Sox owner. One of them was merchandising, and he made a point, and he's not the first person I've heard make this point, but he's the first person at that level to really make that point, that we need to look at the whole merchandising picture. I mean, these shirts are great, the replica player gear is great, but perhaps an area that's been underserviced in the past is the everyday fan, the cheap T-shirt and so on. Is that something that you think, and I'll ask you as a CEO, Donn, that needs to be addressed in the ABL, especially now that we've got an exciting time and some new ownership coming in?
Very much so, Chris, and we've got a very good relationship with BLK and we're in discussions with them about how we move forward with the merchandise. But we've identified there is a gap in the provision of merchandise for kids and for ladies. So we're looking to expand that merchandise offering and certainly put our own design on it. Dan's got some really good ideas about how he wants to take that forward, and I think it'll be exciting, not just for the Cavalry, but for baseball in general.
Dan, Donn said you've got some exciting ideas. Anything you can share with us at this stage, or does it have to stay under your hat at the moment?
No, we're not hiding anything, Chris. You know that. It really is just about expanding the line. BLK does some great stuff on the performance gear, but like you mentioned, sometimes you don't want a batting practice top. Sometimes you just want a T-shirt with one of the players' names on the back. And it's also having other things available as well, in addition to just apparel. It's funny, you sort of just rack up the things that fans, when you're at the game, ask you for. They're like, man, can I have that shirt looks great, but can I have one in a kid size? Good idea. It's like, oh, this beer is great, but you maybe have a Cavalry branded stubby holder, or koozies as we would call them, that we can have. Great. So it's expanding the offerings. And man, this is one area, especially if people have ideas, we would love to hear from people that to see what they want. And that's part of the exciting part of this process for us over the next handful of months, is just getting out into the community. And in order to really truly be a community model, you've got to go out to the people and ask them what they want. And I'm actually really excited about that part of the process.
Let's talk about something else that's happening in Canberra. It's not just the club that's being rejigged in its ownership, but the facility right now, there's no roof on the grandstand. There are bulldozers on the infield. You're not going to be playing baseball there for a few months. Obviously, it's winter, so that's not such an issue here in Canberra. But and Dan, I'll speak to you first, because you've been involved in the stadium redevelopment idea from both the club level and an ABL level over the past couple of years. How's it coming along?
It's coming along really well. This one goes back a couple of years when then Sports Minister Andrew Barr was involved and gave the commitment, and then has since gone through the process. And we've been very lucky to have the ACT government be such good partners in this project. They've seen what the cavalry is all about from the very beginning, and they've given us a lot of great support. Both behind the scenes, but also in things like getting the facility up to a standard, up to an ABL standard, and also to an international standard. So it's going well. The bulldozers are there, as you mentioned, and it starts now. So over the next, I guess it'll be 5 or 6 months, they've got a lot of work to do, because the place is going to transform, both for the fans that are out there coming to the games, and the members who are going to have like you said, a new roof and a new refurbished grandstand to watch the game from, and also for the teams, the visiting teams. The locker rooms are going to look different. The batting cages are going to look different. So it's one of those really comprehensive redevelopments that's going to transform the place, definitely for the better.
I'm almost reluctant to ask, but with an expanded facility, there will be, I'm guessing here, but higher upkeep costs and so on. Is there a new lease signed, or is that something that still has to be negotiated with the ACT government?
I think it's fair to say there's interest from both parties to advancing the current arrangements. Obviously, in this early stage of both the Cavalry and Baseball Canberra, we need to be cautious about what we commit to. But the government has been very supportive in putting their early propositions forward, so it's certainly something that we're open to.
Okay, it's something we have seen in other sports in other locations where governments dish in, upgrade a stadium, and then suddenly with the upgrade in the stadium, there's an upgrade in the rental arrangement as well.
For sure, and it's such a key thing, having your venue arrangements set up. This is not unique to Canberra at all, probably not even unique to baseball. Having a good venue arrangement set up where all of the parties involved are in the right place is so important. I mean, it's something that if you do right, it can make your team. If you do it wrong, it can break your team. So like Donn mentioned, those conversations are going very well, and I know we're going to get to a good result.
Okay. It is, early May, official ownership papers and everything, I think, indicate June 1. So you've got a couple of weeks up your sleeve now, but how are things looking at this early stage for Cavalry land for season 18-19?
Really good. We've got very good advanced ticket sales. We've signed all our major sponsors, re-signed all our major sponsors. We've got significant interest from corporate Canberra and, in some instances, corporate Australia. We're very optimistic about where we're going. We think that we've done a lot of work in the last 3 or 4 months in putting it on the right foot for whoever won the bid. And fortunately, it was us. So we're very confident about where our start point.
Okay. And Dan, to you, the message from you for fans of the Cavalry looking forward.
This season's going to be really exciting. The first thing you're probably going to notice when you walk in is that things are going to look a little different around the ballpark. For those people that have purchased their commemorative bricks, you're going to walk right over them when you enter the new ballpark, and that's going to be, I think, the initial thing you see. But I think one thing that is important to note here is we're in this situation because of the community, and because of what the Cavalry and Baseball Canberra community has built over the last handful of years. And we know what they like because they tell us, and they know the kind of entertainment they're expecting. And our intention is to take that, really lock that in, and continue on that same path. We just want to make it bigger and better.
Excellent stuff. Dan, great to speak to you. And Donn McMichael, I'll give you the final word on this edition of Strokes on Australia. Anything else that you wanted to get out today?
I think it goes without saying this is a really exciting opportunity for Dan and I, but we're totally committed to growing the game and to having the community come on the ride with us. So whilst it's an opportunity, the journey is about Canberra baseball being involved in it. So hope to see them all out there and sharing the excitement of where we are.
Absolutely. Donn McMichael is the CEO of the Canberra Cavalry. Dan Amodio is the general manager, and again, I'm a shareholder. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more names coming out as shareholders down the track as well. Once you have to stop beating them off with a stick. But it's been another edition of Strike Zone Australia. I'll catch up with you again soon.
You've been listening to Strike Zone Australia with Chris Coleman, the official podcast of the Australian Baseball League. Subscribe, download and review at Apple Podcasts, Audio Boom, Stitcher or your favourite podcast player.
This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.